Welcome all to the light box. So I'm not out detecting today. It is pretty miserable. It's pretty wet, windy, horrible, and the fields are pretty boggy because the harvest has just happened. So it's the perfect time to return to the light box and to look at these two coins. So these are two fairly recent finds in the last 4 weeks, and if you've seen the videos then I'm sure you will recognise these coins. And I'm going to start with a coin on the left hand side, so we'll take this little one out the way for the moment. And thanks to you all, I was able to get an identification very quickly. Now, I originally thought that the coin was dated 1692. You can see part of the date on the left hand side is pretty worn, but it's actually 1792, and it is 100 years more modern than I expected, but still pretty spectacular. Now it turns out that it's a 1/3 Reichsthaler, and it's of Frederick William II from the king, or should I say the kingdom of Prussia, the German states. So these apparently were produced between 1786 and 1798, so this one's pretty much bang in the middle. Now at the bottom is a little mint mark, the letter E below the eagle in the shield. Now it turns out that that is a town which was called Königsberg. Apologies for my pronunciation because there's umlauts over the O, so I never know if it turns it into an E or you still say O, but it's either Königsberg or Kenningsberg. Now apparently that's now a modern day town in Russia, which is called Kaliningrad. Now on the other side of the coin we can see the man himself. So the lettering reads from left to right. It says Fried dot Wilhelm König von Prussen. And on the reverse you've got a crowned arms dividing the date with a mint mark below. And the lettering, there's a number 3 here which is missing, and it would say 3 Einen R Thaler apparently. And I'm told by some of you that the word dollar in the US actually comes from Thaler, T-H-A-L-E-R. So this is apparently 62.5% silver. I thought it would probably be much higher. I thought it would be 92 or 95% silver, but apparently, according to the books, 62.5% silver. Still, I'm happy to have found it. It weighs 8.66 grams, 1.5 millimeters thick, and is in pretty good condition despite being worn. Now, Frederick William II, or Frederick Wilhelm II, apparently he was born in 1744 in Berlin, and he died in 1797, aged 53, in a place called Potsdam in Prussia. He doesn't appear to have been a particularly amazing or interesting individual. He was fairly pleasure-loving, as many of the royals were back then, and during his reign Prussia was fairly weakened, both as a result of the French Revolution and also because of factors within Prussia itself. He was anti-Enlightenment. He wanted to return to traditional Protestantism, but he was quite heavily involved in the arts, and he built some fairly notable buildings, including the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin. I'm sure many of you will know that, but he died relatively young, at the age of 53. Now, how on earth does a coin from Prussia end up in Scotland? Well, the answer is, we'll never know, but we can speculate. Now, we've had some coins from France, we've had coins from Germany, we've had coins from other European countries, and Scotland was trading quite heavily from the medieval period all the way right through until fairly recently with Europe, in particular along the coast. So large parts of Scandinavia, modern day Germany, the Low Countries of the Netherlands and Belgium and so on, people were trading with Scotland. So it's highly likely that this coin probably came to Scotland via trade, probably by water, because that's how people were moving things around. So a very, very unusual coin. I can honestly say I have never found a Prussian coin, let alone a Prussian silver coin, in Scotland or on the fields of Perthshire before. But it's a pretty interesting find, and I'm sure that this could buy you a fairly substantial amount of beer back in the days of old. So this is coin number 2. And thanks to lots of very, very clever people on this channel, I was able to get an identification from you very, very quickly. You can see a head in the centre wearing a crown with locks of hair and a beard, and that is the figure of King Henry III of England. And this is a voided long cross penny of Henry III, and it dates to sometime between 1247 and 1279. Now, prior to this kind of coin being around, the cross that you can see in the centre, it only extended as far as the first inner circle. And one of the problems with that was people used to clip the coins. They used to cut little slithers of the coin off. And the idea of introducing this type of penny was that the arms of the cross went all the way to the edge of the coin. And if it wasn't visible, then the coin effectively was not legal tender. So it was an attempt to try and cut out people stealing pieces of the coin and devaluing the coin. Now, it didn't actually work particularly well because there's been lots of examples found where people have trimmed off the edges. This one seems to be in pretty good condition, but it has been misstruck. You can see that the cross doesn't lie perfectly in the centre. So as I say, it dates to sometime between 1247 and 1279. Henry III was born sometime around about 1207, and he died in 1272. But the coins continued to be struck for around about 7 years after his death. Now, he was King of England, he was Lord of Ireland, and he was also the Duke of Aquitaine, which was a large area of France. He became King of England when he was only 9 years of age, and he had a fairly eventful life. He ruled for 56 years, and that wasn't surpassed in England until George III came along and ruled for 60 years from 1760 until 1820. Henry III had quite a good relationship with Scotland during the period that he reigned. In Scotland, the king was Alexander II initially, and Alexander II married Henry's sister Joan in 1221. Later, both Scotland and England signed a treaty called the Treaty of York, and that basically ensued peace between the two nations. Now, later on, King Alexander III would go on to marry Henry's daughter Margaret in 1251. Alexander III refused to pay homage to Henry, but the two of them enjoyed a pretty good relationship. But that wasn't to last forever. And the reason for that is Alexander died in 1286 by falling off a cliff. And Henry, when he died, was replaced by a certain Edward I of England, who was the son of Henry III. And Edward I was known as Longshanks because he had very long legs. and your shanks were your legs. But he was also known as the Hammer of the Scots. He was the one who invades Scotland and makes Scotland submit to his rule, and that results in various people rising up against Edward I of England, most notably Andrew de Moray and another character called William Wallace. But ultimately, Scotland won their independence back with a victory over the English by King Robert the Bruce at the Battle of Bannockburn in 1314. So how does a coin like this end up in Scotland, I hear you ask? Well, they're not that uncommon in Scotland because of the good relationship and also the fact that the coin was silver. It was tradable. The quality of silver was relatively high. It was normally in excess of 90%. So this was willingly traded between Scotland and England, despite being of a King of England. So what will happen to these coins now? Well, under the law, which is called treasure trove, any item found in Scotland where you cannot locate the original owner effectively becomes the property of the Crown. So both of these coins will have to be reported under the Treasure Trove Act to the Treasure Trove Department, who are based at the National Museum of Scotland in Edinburgh. And they'll take the coins, they'll photograph them, they'll record the find spot. The coin on the right is actually fairly important in terms of where it was discovered, because it was found on a site of a very early medieval church in Perthshire in Scotland. So I'm sure that's going to add weight to the fact that the church was probably still in existence between 1247 and 1279. And by the look of the coin looks like it's been lost very, very soon after it was made, because there's very, very little wear on it. So if they can narrow down a date, then it may well give an insight into exactly when the church existed. The coin on the left is also interesting because it shows continental trade between Scotland and Prussia, or certainly between Scotland and the north of Europe back in 1792. And it gives an insight into the fact that people were clearly willing to trade coins from abroad. So these will go before Treasure Trove. As I say, Treasure Trove will identify them, they'll record the finds, they'll report back to me, and if they decide to claim one or both of these coins to be displayed in a museum, then the idea is that you would then, or I would then, be awarded with a market value based on an independent valuation, and I would then be paid, and then in turn that money would be divided between myself and the landowner. Two pretty phenomenal coins with quite a varied history, and both of them from other countries. Well, hopefully you enjoyed the little look at these coins in the lightbox. If anyone's got any questions, then feel free to ask. And hopefully the next video will be me out detecting on the fields of Perthshire. So take care, and thanks for watching.